back to OTH Inside. I'm Amy Hotz.
And I'm Jeff Heideck. This week, Amy's going to talk to us about the Cucalores Film Festival here in town and how some One Tree Hill actors played a part. But first, let's get to last night. Well, it finally happened. The 1940s episode of One Tree Hill aired last night, and yes, it was a little cheesy in some places and a lot cheesy in others, but there were a couple things that I liked. For example, Bethany Joy Gailiotti, I liked her version of Karen's Cafe. It was a nice song that she actually wrote herself, and it's available on iTunes. I recommend you download it. It fit the time period very well. Another thing that I liked last night was Paul Johansson as Dan Scott. You know, some of the characters, especially some of the supporting characters, I think played their parts with a little too tongue-in-cheek for the episode, but Paul Johansson tried to embrace Dan as much as he could and took it as seriously as he could. And Dan came off as a pretty believable movies gangster from the 1940s time period, Casablanca. Now, perhaps it's because that Dan in modern day One Tree Hill isn't really that different from a 1940s gangster. I don't know, but it still came off really well from Paul Johansson. But I think the real stars last night, honestly, were the local crews who transformed One Tree Hill and the local sets into those 1940 sets, from the art department to the set designers to the costumers. They all did a great job putting a lot of stuff together just for one episode, really. And if you think about it, maybe this is One Tree Hill's best chance at an Emmy nomination for that technical stuff that happened last night, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Wilmington's big independent film festival, Cucalores, wrapped up this weekend, and a couple of One Tree Hillers got to show what they can do outside of the television series with their own creativeness. First up was Hillary Burton and one of the One Tree Hill producers, Kelly Tenney, who owned a production company called Southern Gothic. They just started that, and one of their first projects, actually the first project, is a work in progress called Goat, which they held a reading for during the festival. And then Saturday night at about 10:15, James Lafferty got to premiere his documentary called For Keeps. It's about a minor league American Basketball Association team called the Sea Dogs, which is actually based right here in Wilmington, and they still play, and their trials and tribulations of trying to run an organization that really doesn't have a lot of money, but the players have really high hopes for what they can accomplish, hopefully someday in the NBA. Lafferty and the other guys who put the film together, they were locals who work on One Tree Hill with him. One of them was actually Chad Michael Murray's basketball stand-in. And after the screening, they stood in front of the audience and took some questions. There was a good solid row of diehard One Tree Hill fans there, and the rest were your regular Cucalores crowd who were very interested in the process of filmmaking and what the story entailed. But also in the audience, Sophia Bush was there to lend Lafferty some support, and it looked like Kate Vogel was in the mix too. So it was a good screening, and they got really good comments afterward.
Thanks, Amy. Well, that's all the time we have this week. Let us know what you thought of the 1940s episode. Did you think it was cheesy? Did you like it? What did you think? Send your thoughts to our email address at starnewsothinside@gmail.com. And coming up next week, we'll talk about guest star James Vanderbeek, who's returning to his stomping grounds that he owned when he was here on Dawson's Creek. We'll see you next week.